I am a 92-year-old German-born Jew who grew up in the Hitler Youth and was forced to fight in World War II in the German anti-tank division. I deserted and became a POW in a British camp and eventually moved to Canada in 1955. Just recently, I published a memoir of my life. AMA. I was born in 1927 in Herne, Germany. To quote from my memoir, I am a survivor of Nazi Germany during World War II. During my childhood I had to live two lives, a false public one as a loyal Nazi and my true one at home as a Jewish child in an anti-fascist family. Though both of my legal parents were German citizens, my biological father was Jewish. My family was always very open and accepting of others, and did not support fascism but did what they needed to survive. During World War II, we kept my heritage a secret. As a result, I was raised in the Hitler Youth and trained as an anti-aircraft soldier. I was quite tall and desirable to the SS, but I had no interest in becoming one of them, so I volunteered to be in the anti-tank division once I was old enough to enlist. Though I fought as a German, I never believed in the war and waited for an opportunity to desert. When I was 17, a group of like-minded soldiers and I deserted and became POW in a British camp for 7 months. When the war ended, I returned to the secret family business of smuggling. The economic depression post WW2 created an opportunity for my family to make money by illegally importing goods from surrounding countries, for example women's stockings from France. During this time I married my wife and had my first daughter. In 1955, my wife, daughter, and I moved to Montreal, Canada. I worked any job I could get, including work as a butcher even though I was not trained as one, a gas station attendant, and a candy maker. In 1958 we moved to Thunder Bay where I worked in a factory, then as a logger. There I had 3 more children. My family and I eventually moved to Thompson, Manitoba so I could work in the mine. We had a good standard of living there. My wife was quite happy. Had a brand new plenty of extra income, but I saw no future for my children there. I lied to my wife, saying I had secured a job at the Britannia Beach mine and moved the entire family across Canada to Squamish, BC. I did end up getting a job in the mine, where I worked for a few months until they went on strike. After that I worked in a pulp and paper mill woodfibber for 25 years until my retirement. My wife passed away from cancer in 2001. Since then I have traveled extensively, remarried, and am living happily in BC. I recently wrote a book about my life and you can find it here. I'd like to thank everyone for their questions and comments, even the ones who insulted me. I am able to understand them. Most of your questions are answered in my memoir, Fearless, a Jewish Boy in Nazi Germany. I would like to clarify a few things for those who have read my profile. My family was totally opposed to Hitler and the Nazi regime. During the war we risked our lives to help those who were being persecuted by the Nazis. After the war I reconnected with some Holocaust survivors who I had helped and were my friends. In 1944 Hitler was losing the war and students were forced to join in the fight. Our entire grade 10 class of 15 and 16-year-old students were placed in the anti-aircraft units. Soon I was made to join the tank division and after my training I was being sent on a suicide mission to blow up Allied tanks. In order to avoid this I smashed my foot with a 100-pound boulder. I wanted the Allies to win as I saw them as our liberators from an evil and brutal regime. I am very thankful that I escaped armed combat and never killed anyone during the war. It has been estimated that 150,000 Jews or partial Jews served in Hitler's military. I was one of them. Did your German background make it any more difficult to obtain a job after moving to Canada? I was told by immigration, a Jewish Czech lady, to say I was Austrian or Swiss because openly saying I was German would make it impossible for me to get a job. There was a lot of prejudice against German people at that time regardless of their thoughts on the war. What was your reaction when the war ended and the Holocaust evidence surfaced? Did you hear any stories about the concentration camps while you were fighting? Right from the beginning of Hitler's power, concentration camps were being built. We knew because our neighbors were arrested for being communist. They returned a year later and secretly told us what they had learned. We always had an idea of what was going on. Allow me to add here, Nazi government never denied the concentration camps. There were hundreds of camps. However, the 4 death camps were for Germans remote in Poland and Czech Republic. There was not much knowledge about what happened there. On the other side, there were rumors regarding the mass executions in Poland, Ukraine and Russia, as many regular Wehrmacht soldier either witnesses it, were involved in that, or at least heard stories from comrades and told them at home when on vacation from the front. Amazing, look forward to reading your memoir. Question. At any point did anyone that was loyal to the fascist party ever become suspicious of you? A family friend who knew I was Jewish was not a loyal fascist but opportunistically blackmailed my parents because they had money goods from smuggling. Aside from that, we were not close to any loyal fascists and I was a very convincing liar. Can you tell us more about your time with the anti-tank division? What was it like? We were trained to have 2 bazookas on our backs and 1 in our hands. We were trained to elbow crawl through enemy lines and destroy as many tanks as possible at night time. I was going to be deployed on what was essentially a suicide mission, so I intentionally smashed my foot with a boulder so I would be sent to a field hospital instead. You seem to have held a number of different jobs. As someone who's nearly 30, I find it difficult to know what I want to do. Does that feeling ever go away? Is there any job that you have held that you really enjoyed, and what was your least favorite job role you have had? Reforestation was my favorite job because I was doing something good and it was peaceful. My least favorite job was working 25 years in woodfiber because I had no other choice and it was very mindless work. That being said, the money was good and it put food on the table for my family. Also, it gave me a good pension. My dream job would have been becoming an independent candy maker like my father, but that was not an option for me. What was the reaction of German officials to youth who did not want to participate in the Hitler Youth? How everyone had to go, no questions. Officials would go after your parents and they would go through heavy questioning. If you or your parents questioned Nazi reign in any way, they would disappear. The propaganda was so powerful for some youth that parents were afraid of their own children. Many children raised in the Hitler Youth turned in their parents for not being faithful to the Nazi party. Thank you for this AMA. How did you and the other soldiers interested in deserting identify one another? I know the Nazis and other totalitarian governments depend upon dissidents not being able to find one another. We spent a lot of time together in a field hospital. We were all injured and got to know each other quite well. We swapped stories of what had happened to us during the Nazi reign. The 3 others I deserted with were all German Polish descent, so they were forcefully taken from Poland to join the German army. My parents lived in Holland during the occupation, and had vivid memories of the time. How did the average German feel about occupying their neighbors at that time? Opinions were mixed. My family felt very bad because of my connections to the Netherlands. My Oma was from Gelderland. I think the majority of Germans, at least Western Germans, felt that the Dutch were our friends. We shared many traditions and culture, so there was much sympathy over German occupation. Who did you remarry and how did you meet? My son met my wife before I met her at a retreat on the coast. I was initially not willing to meet her. I had sworn off women after a series of ill-fated relationships after my first wife passed, but he insisted. My son was also trying to get her to meet me. At one point she called the house trying to reach my son. I answered and we ended up having an hour-and-a-half long conversation. I drove down the next day to meet her and the rest is history. How was life once the British got you? Any mistreatment? Were you in prison? Was the atmosphere within others' powers there? First of all, we were treated amazingly well by the British. When we deserted, the first thing they offered us was a cup of tea and Woodbine cigarette. The fellow who took me prisoner was 19 years old from Liverpool and showed me his family pictures and told me the war was over for me. In the camp itself, food was scarce even for the British, but they were fair and did their best. I was in the camp for 7 months. I had a good relationship with other POWs. On my 18th birthday they all banded together to get me an extra ration of bread. Took small bits of tobacco, they had to make me a cigar, and one with the help of a guard got me a blooming thistle in the no man's land between fences keeping us in the camp. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. This pupper thanks you.